yes 9 live action and animated Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies, from my least favorite to my favorite. Let me know down in the comments below how you'd rank these, and if you even heard of the animated movies before, if you have any nostalgia from it. Overall, I was watching for the first time in preparation for this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them as we get into this list coming right now. In 9th place, we have Lord of the Rings, that unfortunately has an unfinished animated style that is also complicated in its own means by creating these creative endeavors and mixing these two different types of animations, some for the orcs, some for different characters, and some for the setting in general. That really bothers me, as you get the enjoyment factor all throughout, and while the adaptation is shortened and still really well done for what it's going for story-wise within the first 2 books of the series, it overall falls flat just in a way that its animated style throws everything off, and the voice acting is a little bit iffy in a lot of the different means of how it's going about. And coming in at number 8, we have the Hobbit animated film that is, again, it's still iffy. Unfortunately, we do have Rankin Bass on the forefront of this film that brings a more consistent style of animation throughout the film, and the shortened version of this that feels more comfortable to the length of the book. It still delivers on everything it needs to be, but it still doesn't deliver on the expansive skill that I'd hope for with this type of film. And that leaves at number 7, Return of the King, the last of the animated films that unfortunately don't make the cut for crossing the live action films because of the way that this is a better film, and I do like it enough to really put it on this list, but without the live action stamina that the rest of the film carries, it overall feels less expansive, less grand in the way it's exploring this live action world that makes it feel so real, so immersive. And unfortunately, the animated style just does not cut it, but the story is well handled, better than the others. And at number 6, we have Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, that really is carrying a lot of weight, and you feel the weight of the extended cut, just the way they're going about adding all these different scenes, adding Tauriel, and different characters that weren't in the book itself. And while the Lord of the Rings formula also carries in some feminine power that's not particularly there in the first place, overall this generally does a lot of extensive scenes that don't feel like they need to be there, and while it does have some of the skill that makes this film impressive, especially as you get to the end and see Benedict Cumberbatch voicing Smaug for the first time, it ultimately feels prolonged as a journey that you're really going through. And coming in number 5, we have Hobbit, Battle of the 5 Armies, and while the scale is there, and you're getting a lot more of the better atmosphere with the characters, and you see Thorin's downfall with just the way he's getting sucked into the gold, it again feels extensive from what was one single chapter of the book. They extended into a full 2.5-hour movie that it does have a lot of good parts, and parts that you're impressed by the way they're handling all these characters and adding so much more. But unfortunately, Peter Jackson didn't make the cut with making this as impressive as it should be. And that leaves at number 4, Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, one that sets up the characters really well, expands on the world a little bit more than we've seen before, and the Middle-earth atmosphere is so much lively with the way you're diving into what we're setting up this time on this new journey that we're getting, besides the Lord of the Rings predecessors that came before. And before I go to my top 3, make sure to like this video if you're enjoying it thus far, and subscribe so you don't miss on any other fantasy or movie related content all on this channel that you can not miss out on. But at least at number 3, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, one that, again, it feels extensive more than it should be, and it's well-tailed, and it has one of the best Lord of the Rings battles just in the end, the battle at Helm's Deep, and just the way they go about that is impressive by the scale they're diving into this film. But if I had to cut one of the films out of it, unfortunately it's the middle film that is just prolonged by the way they're journeying throughout, and the amount of action feels lessened, and it's more forgettable just with the way it feels like it's taking its sweet little time, and overall doesn't introduce something that's just as impressive as the first and last. But that leaves on number 2, we have Fellowship of the Ring, one that, again, like the first Hobbit, introduces all these characters, builds on the world in live action for the very first time. That makes it more immersive because of that, and even with the technology they have at that time, it's not using the CGI. That's a little poorly done within the Hobbit movies. Overall, this one, it has such a grand scale to the atmosphere that you're building, the music, building that tension for the first time and getting to hear that is so lively and builds such a great atmosphere toward what they're going for with this film. And just the start of the journey is so strong, and with Boromir's temptation near the end of the film and then his sacrifice is one of the best things that you can just really enjoy about the start of the Fellowship as we get into the meat and of the whole franchise. That leaves on number 1, Lord of the Rings Return of the King, one that's so expansive, one of my favorite films of all time, one in my top 10 that I just really highly enjoy for the atmosphere that it's built, of course, just like all the other films, but making one of the best conclusions. And while it does have some prolonged parts, just like the second one, it ultimately handles that so well that its best moments outbeat anything you can really care for sitting through a longer part of the movie for. And just the way the writing is done so well, building up these characters, finishing off these arcs, and creating such expansive battles is just so unbelievable. The way it goes about its technical scale, with Peter Jackson finishing off one of the best endings to a trilogy of all time. That's just my personal thoughts on this franchise. Let me know down in the comments below how you would rank these franchises, and if you would include the animated films if you heard of them. So I'd love to hear all your thoughts on that down in the comments below, and your opinion on that. So be sure to check out this other video. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.